and in YouTube. Okay, we are live. So, so let me introduce you to the audience. So, thank you everyone, everybody that they are connecting right now to this online event. We have Daniela is going to have like the introduction, but I want to say hi to Vivi and Daniela. They are our or invited. They are invited today to have a chat about so many things. It's like a regular conversation. It's not so formal. Also, Bibi and Daniela has great professional, but if we have like a chat with you and an interview, and the students and the audience feel free to say whatever they want to know about Viviana and Daniela, and I will going to be on backstage. So if you need something during the transmission, just say it, and I will pay attention. So welcome, and that's it. Um, nice to see you again, and go ahead.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm so excited to be part of this live and have a conversation with our guests. For those who don't know me, I'm Daniela, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Bibiana, a software engineer based in Vancouver. We'll be talking about her experience in the industry and her journey in tech. So, welcome, Bibi. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm actually super excited to be chatting with you today, Danny. And thank you, Andres, as well, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I think it's a great opportunity for us to celebrate being women in tech, considering that this is International Women's Month. And so I'm just really happy to be here talking to you guys about my journey.
Thank you. So there are so many things I want to talk with you today, but we can start with your career journey. So can you please
Mhm.
share with us how you become a software developer? How is
Mhm.
your journey? How did it start here?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So my journey is far from the usual. I don't have the usual degree and then internship and all of those things that most people in software engineering end up doing. So my journey has been very sinuous. I started out actually studying law. So I was studying law back in Brazil. Oh, I forgot to say, I'm from Brazil. I'm Brazilian, born and raised. I moved to Canada when I was about 20, 21 years old. So it's been a while. I'm older than that. But yeah, so back home in Brazil, I was studying law and I loved it. I loved law. I always thought that I wasn't smart enough to work with computers. So I decided to go with law, which seemed easier in my opinion, but obviously looking back, I think that's
It's
not the
hard.
case at all. Yeah, it's pretty difficult, but
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, an opportunity ended up appearing out of nowhere to move to Canada. And because of the way law works, and each country has their own law system and things in place, I couldn't continue my studies here in Canada. So I had to pick something else. And so I decided to go for a diploma in software engineering and I loved it. I was like, wow, I think I'm good at this. But I'll touch a little bit more on the I'm good at this later because it's not the case at all. And I can talk a little bit more about imposter syndrome because I think we all suffer from it. But
Yes.
me, especially, as a woman, I feel the weight of it, and I feel it every day. So yeah, after moving here, graduating, my first job was very difficult to land because the market here in Canada is not the greatest. The moment I moved here, my English wasn't the best. Like, my English is not perfect. I still have a bit of an accent and things like that. But back then, my English was awful and I couldn't really land a job. So it was pretty challenging for me. But once I landed the first job, everything else has been pretty smooth. So now I'm basically considered a intermediate level engineer. I currently work at Trust Flight, which is in the aviation industry. It's awesome work. I love it. And on the side, I run VanJS, which you guys might be familiar with. That's our local JavaScript community here. And that that's basically coming from a place of love. I just really love community, and I love being part of something that's beyond me and bigger than myself. And so I really pour myself into the community work that I do, and just volunteering across many other communities as well. There's a bunch of others that I was very honored to partner with or collaborate. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much my journey so far. And this is very, very high level. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to drill down into any areas that you think are worth mentioning.
Yeah. So first, you mentioned about landing your first job here in Canada. So
Hmm.
I want to know more about it. How
Hmm.
was your experience as a newcomer? Because I know that it's
Ooh,
super challenge. So please
yes.
share with us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't easy at all. So the moment I moved here, I actually had to get a job in retail. So I was working in retail sales. I was working at the store. Maybe you're familiar, Danny. It's called Roots. It's like a
Yes.
Canadian store, like clothing store. So I got a job there. Wasn't the greatest pay, but I still felt like, "Ah, I need to do something." And so, as a 21-year-old, you want to buy stuff, and that's really what it was. So I got a job, but on the side, I was still studying. I was going to school and still applying for other jobs. So for me, I always wanted to get better, but that was my very first job in general. My
Mhm.
first job in tech was, let me see, that was at HCL Tech, and I landed that job right after my Bring Station boot camp. So, for those who are not familiar with what a boot camp is, it's kind of like a specialized school that you go for about 3 to 6 months, and it's full time. You really drill down into the code. It's awesome, and that's really what prepared me for being an engineer, really. Because previously I was going to a university, and universities here in Canada, they don't really teach you industry standard things. It's a lot of legacy technologies, legacy languages, things of that sort. And so after my boot camp, I felt, okay, now I'm industry ready. And I was able to land my very first job. And I'm not going to lie, the interview was not too bad, but the role itself, I felt like a fish out of the water. For the longest time, I was like, I'm looking at code and I don't know what this is. And I would just freak out. And back then, we didn't have AI. So there were no AI tools. It was just Google, Stack Overflow. And I would be literally searching for hours and I couldn't find answers. And it was very challenging. And I think because of the amount of challenges that I had to face back then, I started questioning, hey, maybe this is not for me. But thankfully, it wasn't me, it was the job. So I ended up landing my second role in tech, and that was also as a software developer. That role felt a lot more like my swim lane. It was more JavaScript oriented, not so much Java, which was my very first role. And so I was able to slowly ramp up and work through, and I had the right guidance. And so I think a lot of software engineering, especially in your first few roles, it's mentorship. I feel like as a junior, you shouldn't really care about the money you're making. and this is my opinion, of course, you should be caring about, am I getting the right mentorship here? Do I have the right seniors supporting me? What
Mhm.
is the culture like? Are they fostering me to become an intermediate and senior, or are they just working me like a horse? Right? So those are some of the things that I think about now looking back. So yeah, having the right mentorship really got me to where I am. And I've had so many great mentors across my career. It's crazy, not only professionally, but also on the personal side, and not only related to engineering. I've had mentors that taught me things about business, like how to run a business, which is totally unrelated. But as a software engineer, the more you know about the business itself and different perspectives in departments, like how does HR run? What are they looking for? What about marketing? It really gives you a better view, as a holistic view on the organization. And I think it's really helpful to understand the bigger picture as an engineer. So I know I'm just talking and talking and expanding, but to answer your question, yeah, that's how I landed my first job here in Canada. Wasn't easy, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah, that point that you mentioned about mentorship, having a mentor, I feel it's super important because as a newcomer or even as a person who is starting or landing his first job in tech, in this case, it's super important to have someone who can guide you, who can give you like, I don't know, like the basis and the things that you need to know for be successful
Hmm.
in the role, right? Or for be successful as a professional. So that's super important and super good advice for those who are listening to us today because yeah, I think that's like a key in every
100%.
professional journey, right?
100%. And to expand a little bit on that, I
Yeah,
think everyone should have a mentor in
yes.
different areas of life. Maybe not necessarily a mentor that you can go to ask questions, but a role model. Maybe it's a book writer, or I don't know, someone else that you really look up to and you follow their journey closely. Now with social media, it's so easy to follow someone's journey and just be inspired by what they're doing, what they're sharing, things like that. But mentorship made me who I am today. And I would highly advise, if you're starting out in tech, find a mentor, reach out to people. There's always people out there willing to help. I've
Yes.
been helped so many times by amazing mentors that you think they're really busy, but if you frame it the right way and you approach them in the right way, they'll make time for you. And so I think this is really, really important. I just wanted to really highlight that. I think mentorship is paramount for success
Yeah,
in
I
anything
love
in
that.
life.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about language right now because English is super, super important. Even if you are living in a country where you speak Spanish or another
Hmm.
language, you need to know English, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I want to know how did you enhance your language skills before and after moving to Canada? What was
Hmm.
your experience with that? And
Yeah,
if you
great
have some
question.
advice for the students in this
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, 100%. Great question. So, like I mentioned, I was born and raised in Brazil. So, my primary language is Portuguese.
Mhm.
I started studying English when I was about 12, something like that, but very basic, not even conversations, just really like trying to read words or listening to songs, things like that. I did go through formal training, so I joined an English academy outside of my high school curriculum, just because my parents were really pushing for that, and I think that was the best decision they could have made on my behalf, was to really push me to learn a language. It has opened so many doors for me, and I think everyone at this point, it's clear that English is the predominant language, especially in tech. And so if you don't know English, you don't have to be super fluent, but having a basic level knowledge is very important. At least you can read documentation, you can uh, prompt with AI, things of that sort, I think are very important. And as a software engineer, I think majority of us, we do have to have, and we know a basic level of English, because for the most part, code itself is in English, right?
Yes.
At least JavaScript. And so
Mhm.
it does give you a leg up in that sense. But I would say without language, I wouldn't have landed my first job and I wouldn't be where I am today. And so, even more so than being an engineer, you have to be a great communicator. And part of being a great communicator is knowing the language, knowing which words to use,
Mhm.
when, and where,
Yeah.
right? And so that's very key. Uh, to answer your question about how I was able to improve my English skills, there's a lot there. I did a lot of courses, obviously, but also going out there and talking to people. When I landed here in Canada, my English wasn't the best, but I really had two choices. It's either I'm going to curl up and not talk to people and just do nothing, or I'm going to go out there and try to start conversations and force myself into these uncomfortable situations because it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Having a conversation where you don't understand what they're saying and having to say, sorry, can you repeat that 5 times? Sorry,
Yes.
can you repeat that? I still didn't get it. Can you repeat that? I had to do that so many times. And I think it's part of the process is breaking out of your comfort zone a little bit. And that's the only way that I think you can really learn is going out there and forcing yourself into these situations. Also, one thing that really helped me was speaking English at home. So back then, I was in a relationship where my partner was also speaking Portuguese at home. And I felt like, oh my God, my English is never really getting better. And that's great. Anyways, didn't work out. The moment I moved out, I had English speaking roommates. My English suddenly started improving. And I was like, wow, why is that? And I think it's just the amount of touch points with the language, right? It doesn't matter if at home, so let's say 16 hours of the day, you're speaking Portuguese and you go out to the supermarket and then you talk English for 5 minutes, it's really hard to progress. Like any skill, you have to put in the time. And so I think being able to speak English at home or attending a course, putting yourself in situations where you really speak the language, maybe for the people that are watching this, maybe you don't live in a place that you have the opportunity to speak English. There's so many different things you can do. Gaming, for example. As a software engineer, I love gaming. So try to join those Discord channels where people speak English. Try to join the calls, like on the team squad, things of that sort, and to really practice, right? And it's free of charge. It's free of charge. So many things that you can do in today's world, right? But I would say that would be my advice is just try to touch on the language as much as possible and just really study because it's not easy. It is a very different language, right? Even the structure of the sentences,
Yeah.
all of those things, you must know firsthand, Danny. It's very different. It's very challenging. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Your brain just sort of like rewires, if that makes any
Um,
sense.
I feel like at the beginning, when you are learning English or even improving your language, you are just translating everything in your mind before
Yeah.
speaking, right? And that's a big
Yes.
mistake because it's so different. It's like, don't think in Spanish or don't think in Portuguese. You need to think in English, but it's like, okay,
It's
how?
so
How is
hard.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember actually, funny story. I remember when I first moved here, I was doing exactly that, like
Yeah.
translating in my head and like trying to speak, and there's like this delay. And it was just so funny. I remember by the end of the day, I would be so tired, almost like I ran a marathon.
Yes.
I'm sure you can relate. It's like the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. It's like you worked out all day and it's just your brain power, really. But it gets better. It gets better, guys. Like it really does. I don't feel tired anymore. Yeah, it improves. You just gotta keep going.
Yes. Don't be scared to speak the language because it's like the only way to improve, right? So.
Yeah. Actually, I'm curious about you, Danny, too. I'm gonna flip the tables a little bit. Do you feel tired, like at the end of the day? How was your journey with the language?
Sometimes, still,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel tired. I still feel like if I want to understand what the other person is telling me, I need to be super like super focused on that person, and
Hmm.
I'm very concentrate on that. So it's
Yeah.
like a big effort, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, not
I
as much
get it.
as the beginning, but I feel like still I need
Hmm.
to make a big effort. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's not easy.
Well, you're doing great. Yeah, it's not easy. You're doing great though.
Thank you. Let's talk about moving to Canada. How was
Hmm.
um, like, because that's a big step, right?
Hmm.
So as an immigrant, how was that first, like those first years in Canada, the
Hmm.
challenges that you face as a professional? You already talk about your first job, right? But
Hmm.
like personal challenges and also
Oof.
professional challenges, if we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of personal challenges back then, oh my God, I had so many. It was very stressful. I'll be very open and honest. I fell into a deep depression back then. It was not easy for me to be away from my family, away from my parents, from my friends. And because I was so young, I think I was 20 or 21 when I moved here, I didn't really know how to deal with all of these challenges. I don't think I had the maturity and the mental capacity, the emotional capacity to deal with all of these changes, right? Because it's not only the language or the place that changes, is the culture. It's the processes, the government processes. Everything changes, right? You turn up to a hospital and the process is just entirely different, right? At least from Brazil. And I remember everything felt so overwhelming. I would just cry and call my parents and really miss them. Like it was really tough for me. I'm very attached to my parents. And for me, it was almost like cutting the umbilical cord. Like when a baby's born, there's like the cord, right? So when I moved here, I felt like I cut the cord and I was just crying so much. It was awful. I'm not gonna lie. Luckily for me, I had a partner at the time, and so we relied on each other a lot. But unfortunately, it just didn't. We didn't make it. It was very stressful on both of us, and I think at some point the strain in our relationship was just so heavy that we parted ways. But I'm obviously very thankful for that person and all the help that they gave me and everything. But yeah, it's something that people tend to glamorize and fantasize about. They're like, oh, you moved abroad, your life must be amazing, you're killing it, you're making money, your life is perfect, right? And then, of course, you go on Instagram and people only post about their highlights.
Yes.
Nobody sees me crying in the corner, right? But it was very, very tough. And I think a lot of the people that in the past, at least, they would be like, oh, your life is perfect. Not really. It's a lot of challenges, a lot of tears, blood, and sweat that went into staying here, right? Many times it crossed my mind, maybe I should just go back home. It's more comfortable. My parents will take care of me. It would be so awesome to just have my mom. But I couldn't do it. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt like, at least for myself, going back would be a defeat,
Hmm.
right? I felt like I cannot allow myself to be defeated in this situation. And that's not to say that I'm like super tough or anything like that, but I think if you really want something, you have to sacrifice a lot. And yeah, so moving here was a lot of sacrifices and more sacrifices than pleasure. Even today, for me, I don't really have a lot of pleasures from being here, but I do have a very safe life compared to Brazil.
Hmm.
So I go out on the streets. I don't worry about safety. I don't worry about getting robbed or raped, even. So it's a trade off, but a lot of sacrifices there. Hopefully that answers the question. It's
Yeah.
packed. A lot of things, a lot of things.
Yes, it's super. Everything is a challenge, right? When you move from your country, everything is
Yeah.
new, everything like.
How
Sorry.
how was your experience moving here, Danny? Was it
Yeah,
challenging for you as well?
same. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think all of us. go through the same process at some point.
Hmm.
Because it's like you miss everything you have in your home, right? And you want to
Yeah.
go back. So also
Yes.
here you are facing everything is different, people is different. The cool, like
Hmm.
as you mentioned, the culture, the
Yes.
English, like yes, everything is such a. Also, like we were talking about landing the first job. Just
Hmm.
going to an interview in English is a big
Yeah.
challenge. So it's like, oh my gosh, they will ask me. Maybe you will think like I will not able to understand what they are saying, what I'm gonna do.
Hmm.
So it's like it's yeah, it's hard, but yeah,
Yeah, it's part of the process, right?
yes.
Because it gets better. Like, even for myself, you were talking about interviews and like people speaking English and you don't understand. Like, even for myself nowadays, if I show up to an interview, I don't always understand what they're asking. And I feel like, oh my God, I should know this by now. But yeah, it's a process. Yeah, stuff.
Yeah. So let's talk about the communities.
Mm,
How do you first get involved in tech communities?
hmm. Great question.
Yeah.
So, that journey has been interesting and it's very recent actually. It's only been about a year that I've been involved with VanJS as an organizer. But before that, I used to attend VanJS actually. And I attended for, I want to say maybe 2, 3 years. And I just loved the community. I felt like it was the only place for me to meet people, like-minded people and network, right? So there's a lot of reasons why I got involved as an organizer. And I think for myself looking back, and this is an insight that I recently had actually. I was just thinking, why do I put so much effort into VenJS and all of my community efforts and volunteering? Because I don't make any money off of it. It's all volunteer work, right?
Mhm.
It takes a lot of time to organize all of these events, all of these speakers, everything. So, what I came to realize is when you come to a new city as an immigrant and you don't have friends, you don't have anybody, a community like VenJS felt like family because it happens every month. And so to me, it's like, oh, I can go to this place, see the same familiar faces, touch base with them, like, hey, I saw you last month. How's your journey going? Did you get that job that you mentioned? Things of that sort. And so for me, when I started attending, really that was where it was coming from. I needed support, I needed a network around me, like a bit of a safety net almost emotionally,
Mhm.
and that's where I found it. And so for me, for the longest time, VenJS felt like this is the place I go to feel comfortable and safe. So the obvious evolution from there was to get more involved. And so I became a volunteer and then eventually a co-organizer. And I love it so much. I don't think I could ever stop running VenJS. I really love it. And for me, it's a pleasure to see the same faces every month. I know a lot of the regular people, I know them by their name. I don't
Mhm.
even look at name tags anymore. I just know them and I know where they're at. I like to ask them, hey, how did that job interview go? Things like that. And so for me, the community involvement is, I love it. I'm just very passionate about people and I love being part of something bigger than myself, right? Because it's very easy for us to get stuck into our own little world and only care about the things that we care about.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm at a stage that, hey, I have a good job. I'm finally stable enough. All of these things figured out. It's time to give back. And so I think I'm at that stage of my life where I want to help other people rise as well. And you definitely understand where I'm coming from, Danny, because when you struggle so much as an immigrant here and you have all of these people helping lift you up, eventually when you get to a good spot, you want to give back. You want to help other people because it's
Yes.
part of the cycle of life,
Mhm.
right? It's like older people helping younger people and so on and so forth. And so it's part of the evolution, I think. And so that's why I'm involved. That's how I got involved, and that's why I keep doing it. I think it really is my calling. Community work is my calling. I absolutely love it.
Let's talk about like what do you think is the role that tech communities play in tech professionals, like especially in the ones who are just starting in
Hmm.
this, like in their career, in their journey?
Hmm. I think there's a lot there. Mentorship is one of
Mm-hmm.
them. Guidance is one of them. Like very, very often during VanJS or maybe even in the after party, people will come up to me or like other senior developers or even the speakers and ask for guidance. Hey, what should I do? What should I specialize on? Do you think this framework is worth exploring and learning? And so this is why I think community is important, is because maybe you just don't know. If you're in your own world, just hanging out with your friends, all of those things, you don't really know what's new in the tech world. In software engineering, especially now with AI, it's just evolving so fast, right? And so I think coming to these meetups where you have maybe 60, 80 people in a room, you'll learn something. You'll find something new. And I think this is how information circulates and how things come into my peripheral even is through community. Like, sure, you can scroll through the news, things of that sort, and that's great, but I don't really have the time to go through news and watch videos and things like that. So I rely a lot on community. So I think that's one thing. Also, for people that are starting out, motivation. I think a big part of continuing the what's the word here?
Like not giving up, because sometimes you just wanna
Yes.
give up. So like, oh, this is not for me. I'm not getting
Hmm.
what I want. I'm not getting the position that I want. I'm not liking
Yes.
my first job. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly what you said, right? When you come to these communities, a lot of people are struggling with the same things. And so I think having a sense of, oh, it's not just me that is
Yeah.
struggling. It's 15 people are struggling. So there's a sense of feeling validated and maybe even accepted, like, hey, this is normal. It's part of the process, right? And also just being engaged in other people's journey, what worked for them. Maybe I can implement that into my journey as well, right? Maybe this other person took a course and they recommended it. Maybe I can take it too.
Mhm.
So, guidance, mentorship for sure, and a sense of community, really. I think that's what junior developers and juniors can really take away from community engagement. Definitely. And don't forget to give back.
Yeah, of course. So, what valuable connections have you gained from being part of this, like VanJS in this case?
Mhm. So many. So a lot. To mention one, you
Yeah.
and Andres.
Thank you.
So you guys came to the meetup, you talked to me afterwards, and this happened. So this is the magic of
Yes.
community, in my opinion, is you find people that might have something that you can be involved. Maybe it's a project, maybe it's something else, a job even. I actually got most of my interviews, job interviews nowadays, they come through my meetup. So I'll often have hiring managers come to the meetup. And of course, we like to give them the floor to give them give the attendees a bit of a pitch, like 1 minute pitch. This is who I'm looking for. This is the stack. And oftentimes they'll reach out to me and say, hey, maybe you're a good fit. Would you like to interview? So I've had so many great connections coming from community and VenJS with the speakers, with other organizers. There's a couple of things that I have in the background that I'm kind of working on right now. So, for example, Medellin JS,
Mhm.
also JSConf Latam. I know these are super big communities, and I want VenJS to be involved. I want VenJS to be part of these communities so we can give back at a global scale. Because at the end of the day, we don't make money off the meetup and we have funds available. Maybe we can donate or maybe we can send a speaker, things like that. So I think for me, I'm at a stage where the connections that I'm building through VanJS are paying off. And it's really awesome to just see how things snowball
Yeah,
positively
yeah,
because they do. It's crazy. It's
yeah,
like you start off, there's nothing, and then eventually, oh boy, where is this going? It's like, blah. It's like this whole thing happening. So yeah, it's awesome. And I'm just really excited to see where things are going to go. I'm really hoping to, I'm really pushing to get VanJS involved at a global scale. So that's in the works, but takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. But I'm just really excited for that.
yeah. I think that's great. Like growing the community, yeah, making new
Yeah.
connections. That's what it's about, right? So it's like,
Yeah. I want to
um,
flip the table a little bit if you don't mind, Danny. I'm curious
yeah,
about what is community to you? Like, what does community mean to you? And how has it helped you here in Canada, or maybe feeling a little bit more part of something, making friends even? I'm just curious to know what your experience was like.
yeah. It's like as you mentioned, like you start like feeling part of a family. Like you start seeing more familiar faces, people who is going through the same that you are doing, and it's like you don't feel too alone, right? Because when you are a newcomer in a new country, you feel like you are just going through everything by yourself. Like, oh, everybody is so successful, everybody is doing so great, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't see the challenges of like the other people is going through. So it's like maybe that, and also connections, which is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to go outside, you need to meet people, you need to speak, improve your English as well. That's super helpful because it's like
Mm-hmm.
more you go to a coffee shop and you improve your English for sure, but it's not a professional English. So that's also
Mm-hmm.
helpful if you go to another kind of community. So you expand your vocabulary and yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. I feel like yeah, that's super important. I love it too, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's great what you are doing with VanJS. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm just happy to have met you and Andres. That's been an amazing connection that spun up from VanJS. So I'm super thankful and happy for that.
Yeah, yeah, we are too, for sure. Let's talk about what is your perspective of the current state of the tech industry, especially for newcomers enter the field.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, what do you think?
That question is packed, especially now with AI. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that's another one, like about AI. Maybe we can talk about both of them
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
other one is about what do you think about AI? Like yeah,
Hmm.
like how
Hmm.
does impacting the future of
Yes.
like the yeah engineering tech.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of things that I want to touch on. Maybe where I'll start is just by sharing how AI is impacting my day to day. So back when I started as a software engineer, there was no AI at all. So like I mentioned, you'd have to go into Google and spend hours on Stack Overflow trying to find things, and likely it wouldn't work. So you'd have to go back and try again. Now, with AI, my workflow is pretty much prompting.
Yes.
So I write code, I do, but in the grand scheme of things, I am a prompt engineer nowadays. So the reason for that is speed of implementation. So we want the feature out faster, and also productivity, right? If I can ship faster, I can ship more. So that's the premise around using AI tools in my day to day. But with that being said, I do notice that AI doesn't necessarily generate relevant code because obviously it's trained on so much code. It doesn't always give me good suggestions and good answers. So this is maybe 6 months back, right? AI can only do question and answer. So you ask this, it answers that. Applies the code, try, didn't work, ask again. Now I started to see a shift in the tooling systems as well. So with agents now, what I realize is when the answer it gives me doesn't work, it tries again on its own. I don't even have to prompt it again. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is getting out of control
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm not needed in the process anymore. All I had to do was give it an initial problem to solve.
Mhm.
It does all of this stuff, it applies it, tests it, fixes it, applies it again,
Oh.
all on its own. And I'm just sitting there and watching it do its thing. I'm just like watching the console go crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just here watching a robot pretty much. So that's the current state of things for me. It's watching AI work for me. And I hope my company is not watching this, but largely they're driving AI tools in our processes. So they want us to heavily rely on AI. And I like it, but I feel like my software engineering muscle is not being flexed as much. And so one of my fears with the whole AI taking over software engineering and things like that is creating weak
Mhm.
engineers because
Yeah.
we don't know how to code. We rely on AI, but we don't really know what it's doing. Like, sure, we go back, we read what it's doing, but when you read something that's already done, it's different from actually doing it yourself. And so that's one of my fears with junior engineers is I love it. Use AI as much as possible, but don't forget to flex your engineering muscle. It's very important because AI sometimes fails. And I remember I was working on a feature, this is a couple of weeks ago, and all of the suggestions that AI was giving me, nothing was working. It was a very specific library that I was working with, and the documentation was awful. And so, of course, AI has no context. It doesn't know what to do because it can't find any context, right? So I had to actually go in myself and code. Obviously, I'm an engineer. I can figure it out. I can problem solve. I have all of these tools in my toolbox because I have years of experience. And so I can do that. But I do question the ability of a junior engineer that has never done this before leveraging AI so much. And maybe they won't have the ability to come in and actually get hands dirty when the time comes because AI is not a silver bullet. It doesn't work every time. So that's one. My take on the market, because I think this was your first question. My take on the market, if you were asking me 6 months ago, I would say the market is awful. The market is terrible. With AI, jobs are going to disappear. My job is obsolete. Now, today, I do see a lot of new positions
Mhm.
getting posted. There's a lot more job interviews happening. And so I think there's a bit of a, not a shift, but the whole AI craze is settling down. I think we're reaching a point where it's stabilizing the job market a bit, and people are realizing, oh, AI is not going to build an app for me on its own. I still need engineers.
Yes.
And so companies are very quickly realizing you still need hands on deck. And so my take on the market right now is yes, it's still a good time to become an engineer. Things have changed, but with the right approach, with the right mindset, you can still make it. And I think the profession itself is changing and will change more, obviously, with AI improving and evolving. It's going to become more and more prompt engineering than anything else. But it's still a great time to be an engineer. I love code, I love problem solving. And so for me, I will always think it's a great idea to be an engineer. But that's my take on AI. That's my take on the market right now. How about you, Danny?
No, I think it's like as you say before was maybe harder to find the information, right? Because you need to go deeply, maybe in another kind of resources. Now you have AI, so we can say that it's kind of easier, but you still need to study. You still need to know, have the knowledge about how to do
Hmm.
it. Because, as you say, I also have comproved that sometimes it's wrong. It's not
Hmm.
always like, yeah, you say like, oh no, that's wrong. Like that's not working, or you still need to
Hmm.
know, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, so yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's a tool, a great tool, but
Exactly.
keep studying, keep improving your skills.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
to your point, something just occurred to me. But I think the future of engineering is going to be more like we'll be the gatekeepers of
mhm,
quality. So sure, AI can go in, do the work, apply the stuff, change everything, but we as software engineers will have to come in and double check what is
yes.
it actually doing, right? So we'll be the gatekeepers of quality, more like quality control, I guess. But yeah, I think that's where it's going more than anything else.
Yeah, I love that. I love your point, and yeah, totally agree with everything that you said. Okay, let's talk about work-life balance. How you manage that? Um, Share like maybe any strategies that you have for doing
Hmm.
that, because I know that sometimes can be overwhelming, your job and like the day to day. Also, like doing
Hmm.
the VanJS
Hmm.
organization, because it's a big job actually. So how do you manage that? Like if you can share with us some strategies, yeah.
I'm the worst person to talk about work life balance. I shouldn't be talking about it because I'm terrible at it. I work every waking hour. And yeah, I really cannot speak to work life balance. Maybe in the past I could, but nowadays things are just so crazy that I don't really have time to meet my friends. And it sounds really sad, but I barely have time to go get groceries for myself nowadays because everything's just so packed. But I'm not trying to be what's the word here? Victimize myself. I love what I do and I love it so much that I'm willing to give up my free time to keep doing it. And so yeah, I don't really do work life balance anymore. Maybe I'll burn out, but that's something that I'm trying to learn. And maybe I can learn from you, Danny. I want to hear how you do work life balance because I need to learn how to do it. So I'll just flip the table because I have nothing to say about that.
No, I just feel like for all of us at some point it's so hard, because you find yourself spending a lot of time, a lot of hours in front of your computer, sorry, and it's like you need to rest. You can go for a walk, I don't know, like maybe 10 minutes, or just walk around your
Hmm.
street and get some fresh air, get some sun, something like that,
Yes.
because it's like the day passed so fast, and then you get tired, you get overwhelmed. So maybe
Hmm.
doing exercise,
Yes,
finding
true,
some
true.
hobby, yeah, reading a book, things like that. Yeah,
Yeah. I will say this. I do have a partner that actually drags me out
that's
of
great.
my computer
Yeah.
because sometimes it's 10 p.m. and I'm still working and I love it. I'm just like so excited. But how do you live? You just don't live, right?
Yeah.
And so luckily I have someone that drags me out of my computer and is like, no, that's it. We're having dinner. That's it. Let's watch a movie. And so yeah, I guess I do a little bit of work life balance, but it's forced on me. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so what advice would you give to students or young professionals who
Mhm.
want to start out in the tech industry?
Mm, that's a very interesting question. If people want to start in the tech industry overall, I would say get a bit of training and just be curious. Follow your curiosity. I think a lot of times we put these labels on ourselves. We're like, I'm a software engineer and I can only be a software engineer. But if you're really curious about design, nowadays there's design engineering. So follow your curiosity. Don't stick to labels. I think that's very important, especially nowadays with AI. You can be a designer, you can be an engineer. All it takes is a bit of curiosity and following that thread. Like, oh, what about now? Can I do this now? Oh, let me expand on that and just build on top of it. So coming into tech is a great choice. I think moving forward, the world is going to be technology, even agriculture. So agriculture is going to become more and more computerized, and I think there's options for everyone
Yeah.
in tech to dabble in these things: art, agriculture, therapy, even like psychology. Everything is going to be tech oriented, and so there's a lot of opportunity there. Now, if students are looking to get into software engineering, I would say learn AI. I do believe that's where the gold is, at least for the next 5 years. I don't know about 10 years, maybe things will change, but I think AI is a crazy driver right now. And I see a lot of companies actually hiring for AI developers, agent developer, things of that sort. I honestly don't even understand what they actually do, but I know there's a lot of AI things going around. And again, follow your curiosity. Don't put yourself in a box. Tech is not necessarily for everybody, but if you're curious about tech and passionate about something else, maybe you can craft a role, right? Like design engineering. Design engineering really was created for people that are passionate about design, but also interested in coding. And so uniting those two worlds, they got design engineering. So there's a place for everyone. If you don't see a role for you out there, create it. Nothing's stopping you nowadays. The world is a free place, and we have a voice, especially as women. Just going back to the whole Women's Month, we are so privileged to be able to dress the way we want, do what we want, live our lives the way we
Mhm.
want, and work and vote. It's mind blowing. So there's so much freedom nowadays, and sometimes I feel like we fail to recognize that and we just take it for granted. And so really take advantage of all of these privileges that we have nowadays for all the people that fought for this so that we could live the life that we live. So yeah, I honestly think those would be great starting points, and just yeah, don't stick to any labels. Create your own reality. That's where I'm getting at.
Yeah, love that. And finally, could you recommend a book or podcast that has
Ooh.
influenced or inspired your career?
I have two to
Okay.
recommend. The first one is the book that I always recommend, and it's a book by Harvard Business Review, I believe. It's called Confidence,
Confidence.
and it's called Confidence. And me, as a woman, I wasn't always very confident, and I always recommend this book to everybody, even if they're a guy or whatever, it doesn't matter. I always recommend this book. It's like a Bible to me because it really helped me get out of my mm, mindset back in the day, thinking that I'm not enough, I can't do this, I'm not good enough to be the host of a community, things of that sort that were just stuck with me, right?
Yeah, the
And
imposter
so,
syndrome that you always also
yes,
have it like in your mind, yeah, every time.
yes, absolutely. So this book really helped me with my imposter syndrome. I actually have it on my bedside because I love it so much. And I want to keep it as a reminder for myself to always keep pushing. Don't fall back into these traps of thinking that you're not enough. And it's very easy, very easy. I honestly think imposter syndrome is real and you have to fight it every day. Like, so yeah, anyone, I would highly recommend reading this book, Confidence. Now, the second book that I'm going to recommend, this one's a bit more recent, but it's called Grit.
Mhm.
So I think it's by, I forget the author, but it's called Grit. And the reason why I'm loving this book, I haven't finished it yet. I'm like maybe 80% in. The reason why I love it is in the past, I used to be someone that I would always be jumping around. Like I wouldn't stick to something and finish it. Like I would start a project, I'm halfway through, I don't really care about this anymore, and I would start something else.
Mhm.
And I think it's a bit of a problem, especially as an adult. You have to stick to things, you have to finish what you start, right? It's very difficult. And so this book talks about grit, exactly that, like sticking to things, even when it's tough, challenging, you want to give up, you continue on, you finish what you start. And it's a bit of a mindset shift, but super helpful. It's been really helpful for me. And I would also highly recommend that book. Podcasts, there's a lot of technical podcasts and technical YouTube channels out there, but I personally don't have any to recommend right this second. Um, yeah, I think that's what I would recommend right now. How about you, Danny?
Thank
Anything you'd
you.
recommend? I'd love to hear your recommendations, actually.
Um, right now, I'm reading Atomic Habits. So good. It's a great book because that
Love
helps
it.
you to build your habits to, yeah, to start getting better in what you do every day. Can help us if we have questions in the chat.
Yes, but first, thank you, B, for this interview. And
Of course, my pleasure.
I hope this is not the last time that you share an space with us. Also, you have so many, you are involved in so many activities that are interesting for the audience, for us. I hope I could go another VanJS event,
Would love
hopefully
to have you.
soon. And I was taking notes about how that the quotes you mentioned are really nice quotes. And do you use some like great expression? I put some notes in the chats because I want to ask you a little some questions. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I share your fear when you say about the weakness of professional nowadays because AI, but
Hmm.
I use like the same like the analogy that you use
Hmm.
about the go to the gym to work out, and this has to pass right now, but we are lazy. Of the humans are lazy.
Yep.
This is like a super like skills. You have to be lazy because you have to put attention in something important, and yeah, you know about that. But right now is a concern in tech and also in academic context because students maybe are weak for a company. So
Hmm.
there is like a paradox. And in one, VanJS mentioned about something about it because you have to hire junior, but uh, the junior roles has to have experience. And
Hmm.
why they get experience? And the short answer was start doing like projects and all the stuff. But right now AI could do that kind of work for you. So
Hmm.
you had a great like repository is not like a simple bullet like just say like this is not the only option right now to get a job. Also, for us, when we are in a different country, we have to show our skills and everything that is so
Mhm.
hard. So, um, in your company, uh, what do you think? Your perspective. I don't know if you have to have like job interview or interviewers for any role.
Mhm.
What do you see in those persons that are in like um, a job or role interview
Mhm.
process? This is
Mhm.
my first. It's so long, but you
Yeah.
know you got the idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
definitely.
okay.
Are you speaking mostly about junior candidates or any candidate?
Any because I was my concern is with students because we have a lot
Mhm.
of students here, but also with
Mhm.
seniors and leaders because
Yeah.
yesterday we had like another event with a great friend of mine. She was a co-working and she works in a great company here and she has a pay amazing. You have
Mhm.
to know her. Uh, we have a podcast yesterday. You have to hear
Oh, I will.
and she said the same that she has like imposter syndrome, but she has to study a lot. It was really nice, but my concern is because even if you are a really great professional with a PhD degree, and I say you have a PhD degree, what more do you have to do? Like be an astronaut
Mhm.
because PhD is like the top
Yeah.
of your career. But right now, you have to continue studying. But my
Mhm.
concern is about the students and about a leader or a senior in a role.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think, at least from my perspective, when I'm interviewing, I do tend to notice that junior candidates are a bit on the weaker side. And that's expected, right? When you're junior, you don't know as much. But I think in the past, the expectation of junior was, the concepts. So you know what object oriented is, abstraction, all of these high level concepts, right? That you need to know. Back then, people used to be juniors, used to be super strong in those domains. Maybe not so much the technical coding. Now, with the shift to AI, people tend to be a lot more proficient with the day to day coding, so the actual feature writing, but they don't know the concepts around it. And this is going to be a huge problem in my perspective because, like I was telling Danny, I do think engineering moving forward is going to be gatekeeping, is quality control. Now, if you don't know the concept around, let's say you're working on a feature and you want to abstract it to like a parent component, a child component, lifting state, things of that sort. If you don't know those things, you're not going to catch it. So AI is going to be writing bad code, spaghetti code, and you'll be like, oh, it works, great. But how can you maintain the quality if you don't have these concepts in your toolbox? And so for myself, I personally think it's going to become more and more important to be strong in the concept of engineering rather than just is the syntax correct? No one's going to care about syntax. AI can do syntax. It's more so about what's behind the syntax, if you know what I mean. So I think
Yes,
students that are studying right now, you guys are in a great spot because you're seeing all of these concepts, all of these, um, all of this material that is true software engineering. Syntax changes, languages change. You can learn, you can pick up Java, you can pick up whatever, right? But the concepts are the same. And so polymorphism, things of this caliber, really learn concepts because you can abstract that to any language. And AI, sure, it can do that, but AI is really good at writing code, not really making sure it's optimal code from a code base perspective, from an infrastructure perspective. And so that's my take on it. I think senior and intermediate applicants, they tend to be stronger in that sense because obviously they have experience without AI. So that would be my take on the quality and the caliber of applicants.
Okay, yes, thank you. Another question. Well, I have three questions. No more. You have enough time. I want to be uh, a really quick question. Um, for Latin American, it's really hard to think like in a job in a big
Hmm.
city like Vancouver or Brazil also. But we have to fight. You if you have to fight for so many things there that also you have like in a good position right now, but because your career and everything that you share with us, but think about like a Latin American that is thinking they don't have like a good English right now. They are like with a little budget for studying. Also, they thinking about
Hmm.
it. So many projects in life. So I was thinking with a friend in my lunch, and he said he's really great engineer, but when he went to an interview or a new job, I think they can sell themselves for a job, for example.
Hmm.
But what is your opinion about how to sell yourself to a job? Also, you have to sell
Hmm.
yourself any time
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's like how you impress someone, how you um, how they know that you are the correct uh,
Hmm.
person for that role. But Latin American has like also syndrome, imposter syndrome, language skill difficulties, and
Hmm.
also how to sell themselves. Because another important thing is in tech, people are really shy.
Hmm.
They don't want to share so many. So the communities is really important for
Hmm.
that. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, great question. There's so many ways that you can stand out, and especially as a junior. So I can share what worked for me. So usually when I feel like I'm not a strong candidate, and this is a few years ago, right? What I used to do in order to, I'll say, impress the interviewer or just to make it seem like I'm the right person, super interested, I would craft this slideshow. I would create a slide deck and just give them an introduction because you know how every time you come into an interview, they're going to ask you the first question, and 100% sure they'll ask you this question: tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
When they say that, my response used to be, well, I can tell you about myself, but how about I show you a little bit about me? And then I share my screen and I have 5 slides prepared with a couple of pictures, with a few bullet points, what I do, overview of projects. You want to keep it under 5 minutes, obviously, because it's not a presentation, it's not a talk, but keeping it very conversational. And so it worked for me. Every time I did this type of presentation, I got an offer because they can see, oh, this person is very interested. They put in the time to really put something together. So that has helped me a lot. I will also say if you want to eventually get to a point where you want to work for maybe Canadian companies or American companies, you can start small, right? Start learning the language little by little. You don't have to become an expert, but keep learning, keep watching movies, keep listening to music, look for the words that you don't understand. Try to practice. Play games, like try typing in English, even if your conversational skills are not the best. There's a lot of startups that tend to hire internationally. Bigger companies is a bit of a different story. So bigger companies, they'll usually need a level of conversational English, but startups, usually they really just need technically strong candidates. So if you can show you're a very strong candidate, your language skills are not the best, but you're super interested, super self motivated, super driven, they'll still go out and hire you. So I would say if you're starting out, look for startups. It's a lot of work, but it's usually your best bet. And that's how I got started. My first two, three jobs as a programmer, they were startups. And now I'm working at a bigger company because of all of that experience that I was able to gain. And so those are just some of the things that I would suggest. It's possible to stand out and don't be shy. You have to break out of that a little bit. So you should read the confidence book, just tying it back.
Yes, thank you. I was searching for the confidence book. Is a Thomas Chamorro book or not?
It's
This is the author.
by it's by Harvard Business Review,
Okay.
HBR. Confidence by Harvard Business Review. It's super short. It's like a small book. Maybe it's 150 pages. Super quick read. You can read it on a weekend. Super worth it. It has a
Okay.
white cover. Yeah, white
Yes.
cover. Yeah, it's a great book.
Yes, I got it. Okay. We have questions from the chat, so I will share you some with you. Uh, Gerson, uh, Gerson also went to study to Vancouver, and
Oh,
he said,
awesome.
yes, there some communities that help people to move there.
To help people move, that's tricky. Usually companies might sponsor a move, but communities, I'm not so sure. I would say look into, let me see if I can find a link here. But there's this company called VanHack, and maybe I can
Okay.
drop the link. Yeah, it's called VanHack. It's a company here from Vancouver, and they mainly hire software engineers and they help with the relocation, all of those things. So I'm not sure where I can drop this link here. I just dropped it in the private chat. Not sure if you can see it, Andres, but if you could share this link, that's where I would
Yes.
start. Yeah. So this company is amazing. They actually hire a bunch of Brazilians and help them move here, but anywhere from the world, really. So I would highly encourage to look into VanHack.
Yes, this is related with um another comment. I have seen less possibilities nowadays to get a visa sponsorship to get into Canada. Are
Mhm.
there other methods that you have seen has worked for other people?
I can speak about my experience actually. So when I moved here, I didn't move with a work visa. I moved here with a student visa. And so there's many different ways that you can go about it. I know that the rules around immigrants now is changing a bit in Canada. Um, I know there's been some government law change now, so it is becoming harder. But if you're coming in as a student and then you look for a job, that would be easier. And so that's what I did. I saved up money. I came as a student, took a course, and then got a job. So for anyone that's looking to move very quickly and learn the language, I would actually suggest that path. Come to study, find a part time job. Eventually, you get the work visa. By the time you get the work visa, your language skills should be a lot better. And so that's a more sure fire way to work. And that way, I'm not going to say set, but it's a better chance to find a job here for sure than moving with a job. That's pretty difficult, especially when you don't have the experience and you don't have the language skills. It's pretty tough out there. There's a lot of competition. So that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. The last one. Well, some comments are about they are like happy to have you here, and
Thank you.
they share your ideas. You inspire so many people. Also, this recording could be helping um, people anytime. So great to have that in a link to share. But for example, friend, this is a question in Spanish. I'm going to translate it for you. Uh, the advance of tech nowadays. Uh, you speak a little bit about it, but right now the AI is like a trend. But what do you think? What is the the challenge for a engineer or for a student or a worker right now?
Hmm.
Uh, Different that only because it's like the cliche. AI is like the challenge, but
Hmm.
we know there are so many challenges because AI can you say it, AI is not a silver bullet for everything. So
Hmm.
you need hire people. There are other challenges. How do you think about it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges in tech, even without AI. I think there's a lot of challenges. And so I think there's space for everyone. The landscape is changing a bit, so it's going to look different with AI. But there's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of things like that. And I feel like it comes from a place of fear. But once AI settles down a bit and people stop the fear around AI, I'm pretty sure it's going to start booming again. And so I honestly believe tech is a great domain to be working in because it may shift, but it's not going to disappear. If you think about computers back in the day, everyone was like, nah, this is not going to work. Computers are whatever. Well, look at it now. Everybody works in a computer. And it's the same thing with AI. So it's not like it's going to kill all the jobs, it's just going to look different, just like when computer came about, right? So I think challenges, there will always be challenges, and the people that can adapt to these challenges will stay relevant. If you can't adapt, if you can't learn AI, if you can't learn new things, new technologies, new libraries, new languages, you won't be relevant. And so you have to push yourself. I'll speak for myself. I don't love AI. I honestly, I don't love working with it. I really don't, but I had to. I have to push myself because I know if I don't, I'm going to lose my job and I'm not going to be relevant. And so it's a bit of personal challenge as well as challenge around the market itself. But yeah, there's no shortage of challenges here. It's just a matter of adapting and staying relevant and seeing the trends. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. But there are two more questions. Some is maybe you already uh, mentioned that, but you are leading teams right now.
Not right now. No. I did,
Okay.
but not right now. Yes.
Okay. This question is about what advice would you give yourself when you first started leading teams?
When my fears started,
Just like when you're starting lead, when you have like a team and you're
mhm,
because also is this skills is about experience because
mhm,
for example in the university you have like soft skills but
mhm,
when you work with the other um, teammates
mhm,
sometimes it's easy to see like what is the leader there but it's like something like a skill that you born with that but
Mm-hmm.
Also, for example, yesterday my colleague is really um, uh, he has a lot of technical skills, but she was saying that she doesn't want to start like leadership like a team. She
Mm-hmm.
said, I want to be like a regular developer because I want to be like in the action or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
sometimes there are roles that wants to be there even if they are really you have technical skills really amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to do that. But
Yes.
sometimes you have to be the leader. So maybe this work
Mm-hmm.
could be related with that.
Absolutely. So I think to be a leader, it requires a different skill set. And I've had leaders in the past that were highly technical, and I've had leaders that had no clue about programming, but they were still great leaders. Personally, I feel like being a manager or being a director, it requires a different skill set. It's great if they have the technical background and they understand the context of things, but leading people, it's not the same as writing code, not at all. And it's not for everybody. It's very challenging because when you're dealing with code, it's very straightforward. You just write the code, test it, didn't work, try again. When you're dealing with people, then you have egos, then you have wants, you have wishes, you have sick time, you have vacation. There's so many variables, and it's very, very tricky. And so when it comes to leading people, I think you really have to be interested in it. You have to be a people person because you're going to be talking to people all the time, dealing with a bit of drama, a little bit of power struggles, even. So it's difficult, and it's even more difficult to be a great leader. Anyone can lead, but being a great leader, that's entirely different. And there's so many things that I could talk about: leading by example, inspiring people to work harder versus forcing them. That's a skill on its own, right? Personally, when my, let's say, a former boss would say, "Can you do this faster?" I'd be like, no. But if they come to me and they really talk to me, "Hey, your work is so relevant, it's so important, this feature will help so many people," maybe I will do over time. You know what I mean? So it's a different skill set, very, very different. And I think if you're interested in leadership, get training, like get proper training, and just start doing it. Like if you don't know where to start with leadership, try hackathons. When you join a hackathon, you always have a team. You can be the team captain. You can just say, "Hey, I want to be team captain." And that's how you start getting a bit more experience in leadership. And so, a lot of ways there. And if you're already working at a company, you can always take on a more leader role, right? Informal, no need for titles. Start helping out the team. Start talking to them, touching base. "Hey, how are you feeling about this sprint? How are you feeling about the feature?" These are the things that you have to be doing in order to become a leader, I think. And I can't really speak about leadership at length because I don't think I have the proper training, but I love people. And at the end of the day, I love relationships and I love talking to people and working with them. So I think that's kind of how I fell into the team lead role in the past, is because I just love talking to people and helping. I'm the first one to say, "Hey, you have a problem? Let's jump on a call. I want to help." So those are the traits that I think you have to have if you want to be a leader. And you can foster them. If you don't have it, you can work on them. It's just a skill, really.
Okay, thank you. So that said, we have some comment, but there are like the the review of the of the comments. So I highlight some quotes from you. I put it in the comments section. Follow your curiosity. Don't limit yourself with labels. All sped will be technology oriented. That was really, I share that opinion too. If you don't see a role that fits, create it. That was really nice. It's really hard to know to think that way, but also it's like a mindset that I hope that so many um, people that watch this interview could have. So thank you so much,
Of course.
Daniela and Bibi, for this space. Um, in Colombia, you have like we want to you participate also in our communities here. Maybe we could have you here in this year
100%.
or another year. But also, people from Vancouver come to our city to visit sometime. Will be nice. So
Absolutely.
thank you for your time, and
Thank
Thank
we
you.
you. Yeah, thank you so much, Andres and Danny, for organizing this. I am planning to go there, and so I'll keep in touch with you guys, and I would love to come back and speak again, and it's always my pleasure to share. If any one of you has any comments or questions that I wasn't able to answer, feel free to just message me in social media. I'm happy to answer, and I really want to make sure that you guys walk away feeling good and inspired. So hopefully that was the case. And I hope everyone has a great day. And thank you so much for having me today.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. See
Bye.
you.
Have a great day.
Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.